Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, March 30th. The time is 6:05 p.m. My name is Charles Gary. I'm Deputy General Counsel at the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, also known as the MTA. And I've been designated tonight as the hearing officer for this public hearing. Joining us tonight in person or on Zoom are other staff members from MTA and the MTA Construction and Development. They include Neil Mastropietro, Andrew Greenberg from MTA Real Estate, and Rose May Hudson, who is the project manager, joining us on Zoom. Also, Joe O'Donnell, the Director of Public Affairs for MTA C&D. Everyone who wishes to speak at tonight's hearing signed up in advance through the website provided on the hearing notice or on the sign-up sheet located at the hearing. If there is anyone present who wishes to speak but is not yet registered, you may do so until 6:30 p.m. by visiting the MTA website at new.mta.info/2023-AFS project-hearing until 6:30 this evening. This is a public hearing under Article 2 of the New York State Eminent Domain Procedure Law. The topic of tonight's hearing is MTA's proposed acquisition of property interests that will be required in order for MTA and MTA Construction and Development to undertake and complete portions of the Metro North Upgrade Automotive Fuel System Project, hereinafter referred to as the project or AFS project. The portion of the project covered by this hearing includes that part which will be constructed at Metro North's North White Plains Yard. As I will explain in greater detail later on, the project requires the acquisition of one property in fee. Under the United States and New York State constitutions, the government has the right to acquire private property for public uses, provided that the government pays just compensation for the property that it acquires. That power is called eminent domain or condemnation. MTA is a New York public authority that was created by the state legislature and has been granted the right to acquire property by condemnation for transportation projects like the AFS project. The fact that we're holding this public hearing under the eminent domain procedure law tonight does not automatically mean MTA will condemn the property interest needed for this project. MTA hopes to acquire as many property interests as it can through negotiated agreements with property owners. However, MTA simply may not be able to reach agreements with some property owners and will be compelled to acquire those property interests by condemnation. New York law provides many rights and protections for owners whose property interests are acquired by condemnation, including the right to receive just compensation and file claims for additional compensation. Tonight's hearing is the beginning, not the end of that process. In each instance where an agreement is not reached with the property owner, MTA will provide additional notices and information to that owner prior to starting any formal legal proceeding to condemn the required property interest. As required under the eminent domain procedure law, this hearing will inform the public about the AFS project, particularly the work and property requirements for that portion of the project at the North White Plains Yard, review the public purpose, use, and benefit to be served by these contracts and the proposed property acquisition, and describe the project's general impact on the environment and surrounding communities. MTA published notice of this public hearing in the Journal News from March 6th through March 10th, 2023. MTA also mailed notices of this hearing to affected property owners in the project area, including mortgagees. The hearing notice to property owners also contained a map indicating the proposed property interest to be acquired at each addressee's location. This hearing is being recorded and a transcript of the recording will be made. For those of you who have or wish to submit a written statement, I request that if you have not already done so, you may do so by visiting the MTA website at new.mta.info/2023-AFS project-hearing, or sending such statement by regular mail addressed to MTA Government and Community Relations, referencing the AFS project at 2 Broadway, 17th floor, New York, New York, 10004. The hearing notice also provided instruction for members of the public who are blind or low vision, deaf or hard of hearing, or require translation to contact the public hearing hotline at 646-252-6777 in advance of tonight's hearing in order for MTA to provide accommodation. Card captioning and American Sign Language interpreters are also available at this hearing. To access captioning at the bottom of the screen, select CC, and you will be able to turn on or enlarge the captions based on your preference. Users will not need to adjust their screens to CASL. The ground rules for this hearing are as follows. First, I will make my short presentation. Then we will call on each person who is registered to speak. I ask that each speaker, when called upon, for those on Zoom, if any, allow 10 seconds for a brief transition, after which the speaker will be able to turn on their microphone and camera. We also will keep a record of this hearing open until 5:30 p.m. on April 7th, 2023, for the purpose of receiving any additional written comments. The nature and format of this hearing, as well as time constraints, do not permit me or other project representatives to answer questions raised by public speakers. Upon request, MTA can provide contact information for key personnel through MTA Construction and Development's community outreach team, who you may contact with your questions after the hearing. I ask that all speakers limit their remark to a time period of 3 minutes or less, so that all registered speakers may be heard. Please note that an auditory signal will be played to alert the speaker when they have 30 seconds left to conclude their statement. Keep in mind that MTA will be accepting additional written comments until 5:30 p.m. on April 7th, 2023, so that everyone will have a fair opportunity to have their comments made part of this record. Just like to spend a few minutes now to describe the project, its public use, benefit, and purpose. The AFS project is being undertaken by MTA Construction and Development, Metro North Business Unit, to replace the vehicle fleet fueling facilities and their underground storage tanks, or USTs, at 3 of its maintenance yard facilities at Brewster North, Croton Harmon, and North White Plains. These fuel facilities that serve Metro North's 900 plus rubber tire fleet work vehicles, as well as gasoline fueled equipment, including generators and air compressors, will be upgraded to current commercial, industry, and regulatory standards. The need for this project is to address the condition of the existing facilities, which at over 30 years old have deteriorated into a state of disrepair and noncompliance that will continue to result in system failures. The project improvements at each site will result in new state-of-the-art fueling facilities with tanks, systems, and equipment of the latest type in production that will be compliant with all applicable federal and state environmental, safety, and health regulations in force at the time of its delivery. While there is sufficient property for this project at Croton Harmon and Brewster North, the North White Plains site will require the additional acquisition of property at 4 Fisher Lane that borders Metro North's yard and shops and is strategically located for this use. The site will offer significant safety benefits by relocating the fuel station away from regular yard traffic, and will allow the safe and efficient flow of vehicles both to the new fueling facility and around it. Metro North intends to repurpose the existing Healy Electric 1-story office on the property to accommodate the Metro North Power Department staff that currently is housed on in trailers, and will utilize the parking lot for the new auto fuel system project. The fueling facility will be equipped with above ground fuel storage tanks, ASTs, consisting of one 10,000 gallon tank for unleaded gasoline, one 6,000 gallon tank for diesel, and one 660 gallon tank for diesel exhaust fluid. Fueling will be done from both sides of the tanks. The canopy will cover the fuel tanks and the fuel area. With respect to the project schedule, while subject to change, at this time, MTA anticipates that the design should start for this work in early 2024 to allow construction to begin in early 2025. I now will describe the property acquisition that will be required for that portion of the project at the North White Plains Yard. The specific location of the property interest that MTA is including in tonight's hearing is listed in the public hearing notice referenced earlier, and in information that was previously mailed to the affected owner. One property and fee is necessary to be acquired for the construction of the new refueling facility and to site Metro North's Power Department staff as described earlier at the North White Plains Yard. And that is Westchester Block 1, Lot 1, also known as 4 Fisher Lane. The This concludes my summary of the property interests that MTA will need for this project. Although subject to change, MTA anticipates under the current project schedule that it will seek to start the acquisition of the property interest for this work by late 2023. MTA will also discuss property acquisition and relocation requirements, benefits, and timeframes with the affected owner and tenants, if any, and will communicate updated information on scheduling when it becomes available. Environmental impacts. Pursuant to New York State Public Authorities Law 1266, subsection 11, the acquisition of 4 Fisher Lane in North White Plains is exempt from the requirements of New York State Environmental Conservation Law, Article 8, also known as the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQRA, S-E-Q-R-A, for the following reasons. 1, the property is contiguous to land currently being used for transportation purpose by the MTA. 2, the property is less than 10 acres in size. And 3, the acquisition of the property will not change in any material respect the general character of the prior transportation use taking place on the contiguous property. During the construction phase of the new structure, a portion of Fisher Lane may have intermittent restricted vehicle and pedestrian access. MTA construction documents will contain specific requirements for the contractor to follow and maintain safe vehicle and pedestrian ingress and egress along this street. Dust control measures will also be implemented to mitigate possible impact to the public during the construction period. With respect to the property acquisitions that I have discussed, within 90 days from the conclusion of this hearing, i.e. 90 days from April 7th, 2023, the MTA board will make its determination and findings concerning the proposed acquisition of the property interests I have described. MTA will publish a synopsis of the determination and findings and will provide a copy of the full determination and findings free of charge upon written request. Also, MTA will mail copies of the determination and findings to the property owner affected by the project, including mortgagees. In addition, and upon request, a copy of the record of this hearing will be available for examination without charge. In the near future, MTA anticipates making written offers of just compensation to each property owner with a compensable interest in the property to be acquired. Where offers are made, the offers will represent 100% of MTA's highest approved appraisal for that property interest. In accordance with the eminent domain procedure law, each property owner will have the option of accepting the offer as payment in full or accepting the offer as an advance payment, reserving its rights to seek additional sums through negotiation or court proceedings. In conclusion, this concludes my prepared statement. Thank you for your patience in sitting through it. I'm going to now turn the hearing over virtually to Joe O'Donnell, who is MTA Construction and Development's Director of Public Affairs. Joe.
Thank you, Charles. This is the portion of the hearing where we will take public comments into record. In order to permit registered speakers an opportunity to speak, we ask that you limit your remarks to a maximum limit of 3 minutes. I do ask that each speaker participating virtually, once your name is called, you allow 10 seconds for a brief transition, after which the speaker will be able to turn on their camera and unmute their microphone. Please note that an auditory signal will be played to alert any speaker when they have 30 seconds left to conclude their statement. In the event that your name is called and you are not present, we will call your name again at the end of the list of all pre-registered speakers. When you begin speaking, please provide your name and any affiliation you wish to announce so that we have it for the record. Charles, we have one pre-registered speaker, Mr. Kevin Stout.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Stout of McCullough, Goldberger and Stout. We represent Healy Electric Contracting that owns 4 Fisher Lane through the entity 4 Fisher Lane LLC. To start off, I'll state that we have been made an offer on the property. We do not believe that offer is adequate, that it is a fair price, and we can retain experts to testify to that when the time comes. However, what I'd like to talk about here is the unique nature of this property and why it's so perfectly situated as it is right now for our clients. What we're looking at here is a property with a relatively small warehouse and then a large parking lot. In addition, our clients lease office space across the street. It's frankly a perfect setup for my clients. They've known this hearing has been a possibility for some time. They've looked for something comparable in the area. They have not been able to find anything comparable in the area. It's extremely important to my clients to keep the warehouse and the parking as well as their office space in White Plains. First of all, just from a practical point of view, it's very important for all these things to be together. It's the way they run their business. It's the best way to run things where the principals could go from the office to the warehouse and so forth, as well as other employees. Another important part is that Healy Electric is a White Plains institution. They've been here for 40 years, 30 years they've owned this property. And they do a lot of work in White Plains. They do the electric work for this building. They do the electric work for 925 North Broadway, where I know the MTA has other offices as well. They serve the schools, the police, municipal buildings. Who's White Plains going to want to hire to do their work? Obviously, it's somebody in White Plains, and they haven't been able to find any place in White Plains or even very close to White Plains that meets their needs. It's important for them to have a warehouse in the area because that's where a lot of the business is. It's important for them to have the parking in the area because that's where they keep the trucks that goes to their clients' locations. So, and I also think it's important to the employees that remain in White Plains. My client currently employs 140 employees, 30 of whom work on site pretty much all the time. They're a major employer in this city. Most of their employees are within 2 miles of where they're employed right now. So the effect is not just on the owners of the company, it's on others as well. And I think we have to look at alternate sites here. In visiting the property and examining Google Earth, there seems to be a lot of vacant land on the other side of the train tracks, vacant and or underutilized land. I haven't heard anything about that alternative tonight. Across the street, there's a parking area where it's a much larger parking area. And if only a relatively small part of that were taken, that would be the same size approximately as my client's entire property. And you wouldn't even have to tear a building down in that case. So obviously that would be a much better circumstance than here. And also I think there are environmental concerns that need to be addressed. The fueling station is being moved closer to nearby residents and offices. And I think those environmental impacts and dangers need to be fully addressed. So I thank you for your time. And I'll just point out, eminent domain is an extraordinary use of government power. We understand that it's necessary from time to time. However, all other options have to be considered before taking this extraordinary step. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stout. Charles, that concludes our pre-registered speakers for the evening.
Okay, great. If there are no additional public speakers, I will conclude this portion of the public hearing. However, it is 6:24 and we did keep the hearing registration open till 6:30. So we will be waiting until 6:30 to end this portion of the public hearing. However, as I mentioned at the outset of the hearing, this hearing will be kept open through 5:30 p.m. on April 7th, 2023 for the receipt of additional written comments. Written statements may be submitted through the MTA website listed on the hearing notice or by regular mail. Thank you and have a good night in 6 minutes. Okay, it's 6:30. So with no further speakers, this portion of the hearing is now closed. Thank you. Bye.